On the swim bait. What's up everybody, Real Ninja here. I want to talk to you about one of my favorite things, ling cod and rockfish. Okay, so let's go over the gear. First of all, poles. I got two poles here that I like to use. First up, with a spinning reel, I got the Daiwa Saltist. This is a 6-foot rod. The line rating is for 30 to 70 pounds braid. I've got 80-pound braid on here with a Penn Battle 6000. This reel holds a lot of line and it's got 25 pounds of test. Next up, this is the Penn Squall. It's a 7-foot rod. It's rated for 20 to 50 pound braid. Again, I have 80-pound braid on it. It's got the size 30 Penn Squall reel. Again, holds a lot of line. And I'm using tough line on both of these. One of the reasons why I use tough line braid is because it's very smooth. It's thin, smooth, and strong. And you can tell the difference when you're reeling it in. Now the reason why I use braid when I'm fishing for rockfish and ling cod is because monoline floats. So by the time it gets to the bottom, it's way out in front of the boat or the kayak, or it's way under the boat, depending on what the tide's doing. The braid drops down faster. But if you get stuck in a rock, which is gonna happen when you're fishing for rockfish and ling cod, be prepared, bring extra gear, because you're gonna get stuck in rocks. It's gonna happen, it happens to everybody. So what I do is I put a top shot I put 10 foot of mono, 30-pound mono on the end of my braided line, and I tie it together with a uni to uni knot, and I'll show you how to do that knot. Okay, so the 80-pound braid is the main line coming off of my Daiwa Saltist, and the 30-pound trilene is gonna be my leader line for my swim baits or whatever jigs. When you're done tying this knot, you want the tag ends of the knot to be opposing each other like that. The mono running uphill and the main line running downhill. So first, I'm going to pinch the lines together, leaving about 6 inches off of each side to work with. Then I'm going to make a loop here, right, like that. Then I'm gonna wrap this mono around the two lines 6 times. Then I'm going to grab the tag end and pull it. Okay, now I'm gonna I got the knot started, so I'm gonna moisten it to lubricate it, so it'll create heat and friction on the line when you're cinching it up. So moisten it to lubricate it. My main line got a little twisted up, but that's okay, that'll come out. See? I pulled it out. It's not all the way cinched up, but I will complete the knot. Now I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to make my loop with the tag end running downhill. Pinch it together and take 6 wraps around through the hole. See, it's starting to cinch up. So now I'm going to moisten it and pull it tight. So now what I have is a uni knot on each line, and I just pull it together and cinch it up again. And the knot looks like this, like that. That knot will not slip. Then I just trim the tag ends off. I like to fish swim baits when I'm fishing for ling cod and rockfish. This is a 7-inch, I believe, 6 or 7-inch Halloween color custom craft swim bait and custom craft 4-ounce jig head. And if you can see, this thing is pretty beat up, man. That's evidence that I catch fish. I usually just tie a clinch knot. I put it on here, I give it like 7 twists. I'm not even counting, I'm just looking at it. Okay, about that many. Then I put my tag in through the loop down by the eye. Then I lubricate the knot and clinch it up. And when you're doing this, don't pull too hard on this side. That can break the line sometimes, depending on what line you're using. It's more important to put more pressure on this side of the line to clinch it up and give some pressure on the other end. And sometimes if it doesn't run down all the way for you, you can take your thumbnail and just push it down, and now it's tight. And I always back this up with a half hitch on the tag. I put a ½ inch on the tag end right up against the other knot. And a half hitch is basically, like some people might call it, a granny knot. I use my thumbnail to push the knot down to the other knot, and see how that tag end of the knot has the other little knot right here? If this knot should slip, that knot will stop it from slipping. I would fish this all by itself. This is a standalone bait that will catch you ling cod, cabezone, and other rockfish. And I have a whole assortment of different sizes that I use and colors and other baits. I would tie them on the same way, whether it be a ling bar or whatever. So let's say I'm fishing the swim bait and I think, well, hey, I'd like to have a second bait. Well, you can do that too. I'll put a dropper loop about 2 feet above it. How I do that is I take the line, I stretch it out like this, then I just loop it over the other one, like that. I'm gonna wanna end up with like about a 2 to 3 inch looper knot. So now that I got the line crossed over itself, I take the belly of it. You see where those the two on the top, that's where you slide it through when you're done. You put it right through there. So I take the single line on the bottom. This is how I do it. I know there's other ways to do it, but this is how I do it. I'm grabbing my mouth. I put 7 wraps. Now that I got 7 wraps around there, I take it, I spread that middle, I spread the middle, and then I put that single line through the middle, grab it with my tooth, and you just pull it together. Now it's almost done tied, so I'm gonna lubricate it. Catch it on my tooth, pull it tight. And there you have your dropper loop. All right, I like these baits. I get them at Walmart. They're cheap. They're like $2. These are good for vermilions, gophers, coppers, you name it. They got a little paint that's in the eye, which makes it hard to put a heavy line or a thicker line like a 30-pound mono through. I usually use 25 if I'm fishing these. Let's see if I can get the 30 through. But I take my knife and I just waller out that paint, man. I get that paint out of there. You see that? I'm just twisting my knife in there. See how it's lifting the paint off the eye? I don't know if you can see that. Do it on this side, and then I do it on the other side. Okay? So now I got the paint out of the eye. I use, and by the way, these I always put a worm on it. I usually use a robo worm. I'll show you the one I got on here right now, the pack. But I usually like the some other different colors, and I like a ribbon tail. This is just like a straight tail, but I usually like the ribbon tail at the end because it gives it a little more action. I'm gonna take my dropper loop. I'm gonna pinch it on the end to make it as small as possible. Moisten it, and hopefully it will go through that tiny eyelet hole. Sometimes it can be a pain in the butt. It's better to use a lighter line for this. 25-pound test is a little tricky to do with this, but this is 30. Now I'll just cut to another clip where I did it with 25-pound test. I've already done this. I'll just cut to another clip, roll it. Feed it through the eye of the bait, like that. See, it's through the eye of the bait now. Now I pass the bait through the eye. And now it's on there. All right, now let's talk technique. So when you're fishing in the boat or in the kayak, you're drifting, what you do, you open your bail, put your finger on the lines so it doesn't run off on you. Then you just let it go, and then you just let it run out. But I always hold my line here and control the speed. I don't want it to go super fast. I don't want it to go super slow. But especially if you're fishing with a conventional reel like this, you're gonna get a bird's nest, especially if it hits the bottom. You gotta have some, you gotta avoid the backlash on that. And I close my bail, I get the slack out, and what I'm doing, you'll hear it on the ground, I think. You hear that? I'm tapping the bottom. That's how you fish it. You want to stay close as possible to the bottom and in contact with the bottom. You'll have to let more line out when you hit deeper spots. You'll have to reel up a little bit when you hit shallower spots. As you're drifting across the bottom, the structure changes, but you want to stay just off the bottom. Slowly lift, slowly drop. Maybe bounce it around the bottom a little bit, but be careful doing that, because like I said, you're gonna lose gear. It's gonna happen. So make sure you have plenty of stuff. And especially if you're fishing a ling bar with a big old treble hook on the bottom, because when that thing goes down, the first thing that hits the bottom is the end of that bar, but right off the side, hanging up off of it, is gonna be that big treble hook. And those rocks, they'll snatch a lot of gear from you. So then when you get a bite, the reason why I like to use these stiff rods and heavy line is because when that fish grabs it, he's gonna try to pull you back down to the bottom, and he could go under a rock or in a hole or go around a rock, and you're gonna get snagged up. So as soon as you get that fish on there, you wanna set the hook good and start reeling. You wanna yard up on him and get him up off the bottom. If you got a pole that's too limber, if you're fishing a medium action, that's gonna give too much. It's gonna give too much, and that fish is gonna go down and get in under a rock or something and get you snagged up. Now, another thing I should tell you about is there's been times, and this happened to me in my kayak a couple times, I drop my bait down, it hits the bottom, I close my bail, I reel up tension, and automatically, oh man, I'm snagged right away. That sucks, right? So you're like, man, I'm about to lose like $5 or $6 worth of gear right here. But so what I do is I open up my bail, I drift away from it. Like if I was drifting this way, I open up my bail and I paddle this way. And then I get a fleet angle on my line. And then once I got a good angle on my line, and it's been, 30 seconds or whatever, you give it a minute. Sometimes you don't even have to get on the other side of it again. You can just put some slack in it and you'll get lucky, it just come out on its own. But I like to get an angle on it, so if it went in this way, I like to pull it out the opposite way and then lift up and start reeling. And most of the time it comes out. But sometimes you'll find out that a fish, you dropped it right in front of a fish that was in a hole or something, and that fish grabbed your bait and just spread its gills out or whatever and locked himself in. You thought you were snagged. Oh no, now you're pulling up a big ling cod. I've had that happen a few times. And that's always fun because you think you're snagged up and then you're like, yeah, fish on, baby. Here's a leader I want to show you that I got tied up. This is what I use when I'm fishing those jigs. This is that 25-pound leader that I told you about. There's my dropper loop coming down from the swivel, then go down about almost 2 more feet. And there's another one, another dropper loop. Put another jig on here. And then you go down about 2 feet to another loop I tied on here, or you could go down 2 feet and tie on a snap swivel. If you got a loop tied like this, how you would put your weight on, same way you put the jigs on. You just pass it through the eye, then pass the weight through the loop and cinch it up like that. And since we're talking about weights, let's talk about depths and what kind of weight you're gonna need. If you're fishing from 80 feet and under, you probably get away with a 4 or 6 ounce weight or jig head, maybe an 8 ounce. But once you get into 200 feet plus, you're probably gonna need a 16 ounce. Here's a swim bait, one of my favorite colors. You see that little tang there too? So you would feed it on like a worm, to the correct location where the hook comes out of the swim bait like this. Then you would smash it down to where that tang right there will grip into the bait. But be careful when you're using this large jig head and a swim bait that you choose the appropriate size swim bait for the jig head. This one is much more narrow, so I wouldn't put a 16-ounce jig head on this one. It's too narrow. It's going to split it and blow it out. Even on the bigger jig baits or swim baits, I might take my knife or some scissors and cut a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch off the end of it just to make it thicker. Figure out where you want your hook to come out. See, I'm gonna mark it with my finger, with my thumb. It's gonna come out about there. And run it down the center of the bait, feeding it on like a worm. Pushing it up to the head of the jig head. And that's it, man. That baby's ready to drop. So I've got some other cool baits like squids and these octopuses. These are from Custom Craft too. I don't know who makes these squid, but I saw these out at the, these were at the Fisherman's Warehouse in Manteca, and I thought they were awesome. So I got a couple of them to try them out. I think they're gonna work great. And to tell you the truth, the thing about Ling Cod is they're such a predatorial, they're so like territorial and predatorial. I honestly think if you rigged up a pair of scissors with hooks or even a beer can, you could drop it down there, and if it landed in front of a Ling Cod, he's just gonna snap on it. He's gonna grab it because it's pissing him off. It's in his space, it's in his face, and he don't like it. And those fish are so highly predatorial, they just eat anything, man. So I've got a couple other baits here I want to show you, and I like these. And I've got a bunch of them. I got basically a box full of them here. These are P-line laser minnows, all different colors, really cool colors they come in. And let me show you how I fish these. Usually I would fish these on the bottom by themselves. So I would just tie it on to the end of my my top shot. That's that 10-foot mono leader on the end of my, with the uni, you know, like we got here on the Saltist. Since we got the dropper loop on here, I'll show you. So we got the swim bait with the dropper loop that I tied already earlier. And I'm just gonna show you, now if I wanted to, I could fish this laser minnow above it by passing the dropper loop through the eye of the laser minnow and then passing the laser minnow through the eye of the dropper loop. And after that, run it down to the eye. Make sure it doesn't seat up funny on the bait either. So when I run it down, I want to make sure that, you see how it's gonna sit on the top of the eye? You don't want it to like be down here. You don't want this to go and get wrapped around the eye like this. You see that? You don't want that. You want this to be up on top like that. So it's right on top. You pull it tight so that not everything's right on top. It's not wrapped around here. Now I have fished like this and I have caught some nice fish like this, but the problem is look what happens when it's vertical. This hook can wrap around the main line. It works, it's not my favorite, and the other reason why it's not my favorite is because if I'm looking for a big Ling Cod, I don't want a smaller bait up here distracting smaller fish. When you're fishing with two baits like this and you get bit and you hook up and you got that fish on there, sometimes as long as you keep it up off the bottom a little bit, you can leave it down there and another fish will come bite your other rig, whether it's on the bottom or the top. So what's a hitchhiker? Well, a hitchhiker is generally, when you're rock fishing, is a Ling Cod. You catch like a black or a blue or a gopher or something, a smaller rockfish, and while you're reeling it up, I've seen Ling Cod follow it all the way up to the boat. We had a small black hooked up, and the Ling Cod was chasing the fish all the way up to the surface. You leave it down there a little longer, you might just have that thing grab it, and then you get 2 for 1. So anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that helps you. We talked about the rods, the reels, the right kind of line to use for your leader. And the reasons why, we talked about the baits, the weights, the knots, the technique. I mean, if you want to, you could even use, make a different kind of leader and use squid with the same bouncing off the bottom, or mackerel. Sometimes people use live anchovies. There's a bunch of different ways to do it. I usually like to use artificial baits. I like big swim baits, and I like ling bars, although I don't fish them that much because I think they get stuck in the rocks more. But try whatever you like. I've seen some greedy ass rockfish bite some big ass swim baits. It's crazy sometimes when you reel in like a 10-inch china on a 7-inch swim bait, dude. It's insane. But it's a lot of fun. So whether you're on the kayak or you're in the boat, just get out there and have some fun. If you have any questions, I'd love to see your comments, or if you want to post a video of yours that you made in the comment, I'd like to see your fishing trips, see your baits, whatever you got. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe and like, because we love fishing. So anyways, I hope you had a good time, man. I'm just having fun, and I can't wait to get out. I might be able to get out this weekend. So we'll see you all later. Again, Real Ninja, please like and subscribe. Have a good day, and hit me up in the comments, and let's talk about some fishing, because that's the thing I love. I just landed a nice fucking Ling Cod. Look at that shit. Huh? That's a nice fish, ain't it? That's a keeper though.